Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the wisdom of the future self and how we can tap into this, this future incarnation of ourselves in this lifetime to gain some guidance and wisdom in navigating difficult times. So before we get started, let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your cells, all your electrons, all your molecules, and creating this brilliant beam of light from the inside out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Very, very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel that tickling and tingling and that wonderful sensation that is part of this remarkable physical form that allows us to experience life. Welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to everyone else who's joining us. So today we're talking about the wisdom of the future self. And I think that so many of us find ourselves navigating times of confusion and difficulty, and often feel lost and adrift. And good morning, Jennifer. So good to have you here with us. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about the wisdom of the future self and how we can tap into this resource that's there for us, because, you know, in some sense, time is just a construct, right? Time doesn't truly exist. And we have access to different dimensions of awareness and wisdom. And so if you're navigating a time now of difficulty, I'm not advocating spiritual bypassing, you know, like to say, well, this doesn't count, or in the long run, it doesn't matter, you know, that where we deny ourselves our feelings, but through that kind of mechanism. That's not what I'm advocating, but what I am suggesting is that there is a self, ourself, a version of ourselves in the future that will have navigated the challenges that we are subject to in this particular moment. There is a future self who hopefully has greater wisdom and greater perspective and excuse me, greater experience, who has weathered the challenges that we are currently facing, and hopefully has triumphed, you know, has gained in wisdom, has gained in perspective, has deepened in understanding and compassion, who has grown past our habitual patterned negative emotions, and you know, like our elevated, transformed future self. And we can access this aspect of ourselves at any moment. we can transcend time to connect with that wisdom, to learn from our future selves. So time, good morning, Susan. So delighted to have you here with us. We're talking about accessing the wisdom, knowledge, compassion, awareness of our future selves. That this future self, that we can find this self at a variety of stages. We can, look 5 years into the future for that future self, or we can look to that self on our deathbed who has the benefit of the lifetime of wisdom. And so good to have you here. I'm so delighted, Susan. And Susan says, love being here. That's awesome. Thank you. So, I imagine my future self, who on her deathbed has a rich understanding of life and a rich connection with nature, and an awareness and peace, sense of peace and wholeness, and gratitude for the richness of life and all of its challenges and sorrows and joys, and every bit of every experience, and the craziness of it, and just a deep abiding love and appreciation for the opportunity to have experienced the richness of life. And I imagine, I in going through difficult times now, I know that I can connect with her, this sage woman who has a rich relationship with all of life's experiences. And I can ask her for counsel, and I can ask her for guidance, and I can ask her for succor, for healing of my heart. And I think that there's some richness there to give us hope and possibility. Sometimes we feel stuck. Sometimes it seems that we're going round and round and round with the same issues, the same concerns, the same frustrations, the same experience of limitations, when in fact it's not really the same. It just feels that way. But when we find ourselves in these loops and these doldrums, then we do have this resource of light that is our very own, that is tempered by the experiences of our very own lives. And I truly believe that it's more than a mental exercise. I truly believe that our life is already complete, that we live in this is, I talk about my hypotheses. I'm not saying this is true. I'm not saying believe this, because it's my working hypothesis, and you can try it on, see if it works for you. But I kind of believe that our lives have already been lived, and the unfolding of them is the illusion. It's an illusion that we're living them. They've already happened, and it's already done, and everything that's ever been has already been. And it just unfolds for us. And we have this illusion of linearity. And if in fact, well, who knows about fact, right? But if it's the case that these lives have already been lived, then we have access to all the information that is, and even that is in the universe, that's not even limited to our own lives, because we're part of this continuum. And so when we need comfort, when we need clarity, when we need hope, we can connect ourselves in heart and mind to this future self, or this sage aspect of ourselves. And I believe that we can give ourselves the generosity to imagine that self has worked it all out. That all the challenges that plague us emotionally and materially and all of that this sage self has it all figured out. And that we can then tap into that wisdom. And if we recognize, like, let's say we have an experience of chronic insecurity and not feeling good enough and beating ourselves up and criticizing ourselves, and we can perhaps imagine this sage self who has transcended that, who has gotten beyond that place, who has gotten beyond those patterns, who has resolved those issues. And as we presence ourselves to that sage self, maybe we can recognize that we don't need those patterns now. That there's no doing that has to get done to be in that place right now. Because we can recognize that this aspect of ourselves was able to release all of that. So why wait? Why wait? Why not just be that now? That this sage self is the self that it's not bypassed, hasn't bypassed all these lessons, but the sage self has metabolized all those lessons, has integrated all those lessons, has processed them deeply and profoundly and completely to be able to be on the other side of it. And we can benefit from that passage by connecting with that self who really truly has already processed all of it to be on the other side of it. So in a twisty way, we're not avoiding anything. We're simply benefiting from the years of wisdom and bringing them present into the current moment. So I'm wondering if this is like a little too trippy for you guys, or if it's connecting, to recognize that we really do have the ability to transit time and space and pull wisdom, pull information, pull experience from this other aspect of ourselves. I know that there's a thing in NLP called timeline therapy, where you can go back and forward in time, actually, and find different places on a timeline and elevate yourself off of that space and see it in a different perspective and allow things to shift. And I think that there's a rich gift when we recognize that time is a construct that we can utilize to our advantage, that we're not necessarily at the effect of time, but that we can make it work for us. And when we allow ourselves to I want to say distance ourselves from the belief that time is a thing, that time is something that's immutable, then we can work with it with a certain level of magicianship, that we can have it make magic with us for us. And I wonder if you've given yourself the opportunity ever to play with time. I remember when I was in school, there was one day, and it's so funny that I remember this the way that I do. I just wanted that day to be over. It was like the longest day in history, and I just wanted it to be over. And I invoked that this day was going to be over and I was going to forget it and it was going to be done. And so what's funny is that I remember that I just wanted this day to be over, and it was over, and I have no recollection. I have no recollection about what it was about that day that I so wanted to be done. I have no recollection about what else, what else went on that day. But it's interesting to realize that we have the ability to invoke experiences the way that we do. And the mind is such a fluid thing. This future self has answers. This future self potentially has answers to everything. And if we can tap into that future self, either in a feeling way or sometimes maybe even by way of ideas, but if we can tap into this future self, then we can have a perpetual guide and comfort. The future self has been through it. And that's one of the biggest consolations about the future self is they survived it, right? They made it to the other side. And by virtue of that fact, we know that we will as well, even when it feels like we can't go on. And so I invite you to play with that idea, particularly when experiencing struggles and heartbreak and confusion or feeling adrift, to be looking to the future self for the wisdom that it has to share about getting through that rocky patch. And it might even be just something to the effect of, yeah, it's rocky. Yeah, it's difficult. And you're going to make it through. Just the assurance that you're going to make it through and be the richer for it. And Jennifer says, I'm listening and absorbing all you're saying. I've been in a bad place lately. Jennifer, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you've been having such a hard time. And I invite you to find connection with this future self who's gotten through this rough time, and to find the wisdom and compassion and love that she has for you, to maybe give you some guidance and at least hold your hand or give you a shoulder so that you can continue on and know that you're not going to be in this bad place forever. Hopefully she'll be able to guide you and comfort you. I surely hope so. Good morning, Dennis. You're so kind. And Rosalind says, acceptance, align, allow. Exactly. And the thing is, like sometimes it's so lonely. We go through our passage, the deepest emotions that we experience, the deepest experiences of our lives, we experience alone ultimately, right? And so to know that we have this sage self available to us, this is perhaps the one being, the one consciousness that knows us more intimately than any other on the planet, right? And to be, we often go back and, good morning, Bernadette. So good to have you here with us. We often go back and nurture our inner child. But the thing is that we don't have to just go back. We don't have to always be the wise one. There is a wiser one of us in our future. And we can allow ourselves access to that sage self to help nurture us in the way that we've nurtured our inner child, right? Who can help us go through the bad places and to help ease our way. And I invite you to connect with that sage self. I invite you to allow her to, or him to, offer you a hug and a shoulder and support, and to remind you that you're not alone. I guess that's kind of an odd thing, right? We're a multitude of people. Each of us individually is a multitude of people, and we can access these other aspects of self to find enrichment and comfort and companionship, particularly when we're having to navigate life's challenges, right? Where there's no other human that can understand us in the way that our sage self can. So Bernadette says, my sage child self goes wild every now and then. I continuously shake my head, LOL. Well, that's a great thing. So your wild child self is keeping you entertained, Bernadette. That's awesome. So anyway, I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful. And I so appreciate you being here with me in the mornings and having these conversations and sharing your hearts. And I'm just sending so much love. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern each weekday morning. So I invite you to connect with your sage self and have a good visit, and share your heart. And Rosalind says, being in nature is comforting, feeling the sun, seeing all the busy bees and nurturing plants. I agree, Rosalind, nothing so healing as nature, for sure. Bernadette says, grateful for you as well. Have a great day, my friend. Thank you. And you, Bernadette, and all of you. Jennifer, thank you. Namaste, Susan. And it's just so good to be with all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So much love. And I hope I see you again here really soon.